Godzilla analog horror, never thought I'd see the day. When I think of Godzilla, I think of Goji from the Monsterverse, like the big guy who's a neutral force of this world and just wants to protect the natural order and have cool monster fights. But this analog horror flips it around. From cool to I now always have to make sure every door in the building is locked before I go to bed. I think it was an entire week when I didn't cover any analog horror and you guys kept on asking me for the man in the suit. For more than a month now. Some of you even threatened to take my family. Well, luckily for you and I guess my family, I'm doing a video on it. And I'm glad I listened. And this is one of the more interesting analog horrors that blends horror with the historically accurate tragedies of the past. The creator of this series is Unknowingly. From what I heard in the Discord, go join my Discord in the description by the way, the series was put off because of a very toxic Godzilla fanbase. But I'm glad Unknowingly is continuing the series after seeing the new trailer. And as a heads up, this video is going to be covering the first 6 tapes and the second video will cover the remaining 6. Sometimes I get busy with other things life throws at me, so I don't have time to do an almost 1 hour long video in a single go. Not to worry though, the part 2 will be uploaded this week. And one final thing, I'm not that familiar with Godzilla lore. Like the only real installations I've watched are Monsterverse Godzilla, Shin, and a while back I watched Godzilla vs. Destroyer, so don't hesitate to let me know if I messed anything up. Without further ado, let's get into the video. It starts off with a slow down Godzilla theme that sounds heavily and shows Godzilla near a bridge or in what I assume is a movie set. The man who was in the Godzilla suit wasn't known at the time but had an unusual relationship with Gojira. When I heard this, I thought he was just a big Godzilla fan, which is valid. I mean, it's a giant dinosaur thing that shoots atomic breath. However, he seemed to be a little too into it. He started wearing the suit so much to the point where you would hardly even see his actual face. This information is coming from the producer, director, and actor from Toho, which by the way, I'm guessing is the company making the movie. His obsession with the suit got so out of hand that even as the suit would heat up, he'd still wear it. Even taking it home while wearing it, although it was against the rules. As some of you know, I plan on doing a Q&A when I reach 100,000 subs this year with a dinosaur suit, and this is making me have a few doubts. Soon he couldn't even form full sentences, instead just saying I'm Goji, which was what the workers on set called the character itself. The last time he was seen on the movie set was when he was doing his normal acting, but then he stopped in and out randomly with heavy breathing. But then he came to a complete stop for several minutes. The director thought it was a joke, so he started poking the actor to get him back into place, which is a big no-no in my book. I don't know what it is with animatronics or mascots, but since I was a kid who grew up with FNAF and now other horror games with mascots, this just freaks me out. Like I saw a dude in a Barney costume once at the zoo and I was contemplating tackling him to save the kids, but I then remembered I'm not built for jail.
I want that booty, Tom! You can't have my booty!
And left them to their fate. Anyway, after the director started poking him and there was still no response, some members of the set decided to check in on him. A man opened the suit to find a dude inside the costume fusing with it. The suit itself was now his skin, but that isn't necessarily the strange part, even though everything about this is just bizarre. It's that the guy started to fill any gaps in the suit that his body couldn't fit. It's almost as though his body started to liquefy in order to fill in the loose ends. After that briefing, we then get the before and after of the actor in the suit. Okay, this is pretty bad. I thought his arms and legs filled in the gaps, but no, this guy actually filled in all parts of the suit. My first thought is that it's paranormal activity because there is no way that guy's body could have filled in that suit. He had to grow or develop more flesh to fill up those spaces his normal body couldn't. And paranormal activity would somewhat explain why some of the people on set stated that it was almost as though the suit was calling the guy. But in the description we get some interesting details. Translated, it says Godzilla may be a monster, but it seems to be different to me. He is more like a god. He controls our world in its own order. And I will be the meat of the beast. I will be Godzilla's host. Because I want to be a god respected by the people. I want to be the meat of the beast. And the fear of which I am wrong. I am not a movie monster. I am Godzilla. The law of good and evil. I will live amongst the beast. Because he is the only one who can help us. There is no god. Only me, Godzilla. First of all, heresy. Secondly, it seems like the guy could have some sort of superiority complex and maybe something in the suit was pandering to his ideology and let him fuse with it. At least that was my going theory until I saw the Hiroshima at the top of the description. From what I saw online, the Gojira movie was made in 1954, 9 years after the Hiroshima bombing in Japan. I'm not sure how that exactly plays into this guy in the suit, but I'm sure it will play a crucial role in the other tapes. The second tape is titled Anguirus Suit Incident, set in 1955. Oh no, they're turning more people into these man-made horrors. By the way, if I'm saying Anguirus wrong, I'm terribly sorry. We see another trailer with Goji, this time it's him fighting Anguirus, so for whatever unforsaken reason they still let this guy act on set. No emergency care or at least contacting the authorities. Instead, Toho feared they would get sued and ridiculed for keeping such a disgusting creation. Well, that's not nice. I think he has a certain charm to him. But they wanted to bank off the success of Gojira while keeping him out of the public. Alright, so now it's just straight up kidnapping, and couldn't they have just made another suit? Like, is this something I'm missing where another suit couldn't have been made? Despite this, Toho still wanted to know what ultimately caused this, so they hired some private doctors to examine the man in the suit. Hey, they said it. They said the thing. Ultimately, the doctors couldn't exactly determine the cause, but they said it might be a pill. Really? A pill is going to make your flesh melt and fuse with a foreign object. I'm gonna search this up. Is there really a pill that makes your skin... Oh. I guess I'm wrong, but regardless, I don't think those specific antidepressants were around back then, so I'm ruling out the pill. It's not even just the skin. The bones in his body grew into the suit and an extra layer of skin formed on top of the suit itself. That is disgusting. All I can imagine is a giant scab forming around the suit. And despite being shorter than the suit, he could now see through the eye sockets, even though the eyes were bloodshot. Nah, you gotta put him down, fam. The actor who played Anguirus isn't named either, but he was oblivious to what he was working on set with, even though he found the name man in the suit weird. They tried to make all of this sound somewhat positive by saying the man in the suit was very cooperative. Even though he couldn't talk anymore, he can just make animal noises. So whatever's gonna happen to the guy in the other costume is kinda deserved. Imagine trying to converse with the guy in the other suit and he just grunts and roars. I'd be out of there. Maybe it's the black in me, I don't know, but if you bark or snarl at me, even if you're a furry, yeah, I'm out. Just take the win, bro. But hey, the guy in the Anguirus suit still decided to act. And we see this text saying everything went fine until the final scene. We then cut to a fight scene of Gojira and Anguirus. You know those videos of bears fighting and you can see the rippling loose skins from their collisions with each other? This is what that fight reminded me of. Goji behaved like an absolute animal, and at the end we hear bones crunching and blood flowing from the Anguirus suit. Turns out Goji was in fact not cooperative and clamped down on the dude's skull. And at the bottom it just says that this was not part of the script. Oh, you think? The actor cried for help as long as he could until he finally just stopped moving. At which point the man in the suit behaved defensive, attacking anyone who came near the Anguirus suit. You know, a gun would solve this issue. Anyway, the guy in the Anguirus suit was somehow alive and was shaking a lot. The staff managed to help him up as they feared the worst when trying to take off the suit, but it wouldn't come off. Right after that, a picture is shown of the man in the suit protecting Anguirus. This sure is wonderful, recording at 2 AM with no one home. And now we hear the classic Godzilla theme with what they expected to see, but then it got slower and we see this. So Goji wasn't like guarding the guy because he thought he was food or anything. The man in the suit somehow turned this guy into what he was just by biting him, and he probably only let the guards take him after the transformation was complete. There's another sentence in the description of the video in Japanese, and it translates to, "Help me, somebody help me, it hurts so much. I can't get out, help me, oh God. There is no God, only me. Don't worry, I will make you whole again. You have lost your family, so take revenge. Kill those who have wronged us. Who are you? I'm Goji." Again, blasphemy, but this time it seems to shift to the perspective of both actors who are now fused with the suits, with Anguirus asking for help and saying it hurts, and the man in the suit replying, "Don't worry, I will make you whole again. You have lost your family, so take revenge," and he then calls himself Goji. On the second tape, I'm still somewhat at a loss. Was the man in the suit talking about the cast on the film set? Were they the ones he wanted Anguirus to take revenge on? Because Goji himself, from what it seems, doesn't really have a problem with them openly and cooperates with them, so we have to see what the other information on the third tape has to offer. Tape 3 opens up with quite a time skip. It's now 1962, and a trailer of Kong vs Godzilla is showing. Even after that incident in 1955, they still decided to use the man in the suit for the next film because it was the only Godzilla suit at the time. Again, why not just make another suit? Is the original artist or designer for the suit dead and he just took all the secrets of the model with him or something? To make matters worse, the man in the suit doesn't like King Kong because it's an American film. If he did that to Anguirus while he was being cooperative, what would he do to the guy in the King Kong suit if he blatantly just shows aggression towards him? At this point, we learn that the story is being told by a cameraman Toho hired, but he decides to keep himself a mystery to protect his family. Toho themselves told him that he'd be arrested if he told anyone about this, which is already sketchy as hell, but this guy has balls of steel, and decides that it's about time people know the truth. The man in the suit didn't like making videos with the Americans. Hey, they hate us cause they ain't us, right? Even though I grew up in the Caribbean. And Goji especially disliked the guy in the Kong suit. Shoichi Horose, I hope I didn't say that wrong. He apparently saw the guy as a traitor for portraying an American monster or something. Whatever the reason was, he would lash out at any Americans, causing the directors to treat him like a wild animal at a circus or a zoo. There was one more scene to film for this movie with a building being destroyed, and the man in the suit acting as though he was doing an atomic breath. But it didn't go as planned. Yeah, I'm sure the hell it didn't. Considering how much this thing hates Americans and you let it loose on set with one or at least someone who played an American monster. So the cameraman was forced to record the fight scene no matter what happened. Even after they fell off the cliff, there was a lot of splashing and struggle in the water, but only one suit stood up. Being Goji's, of course. He looks a lot different in the shot compared to the trailer, so maybe he distorts his figure sometimes. Knowing that this thing just off someone playing an American monster and that the staff were powerless when it's on the rampage, the cameraman decides to book it with the camera. He tried to find an exit while running down the corridors, but he heard a scream and the power went out. So he decides to use his flash on the camera and hears footsteps behind him. Thinking that it's someone who's lost, he decides to use the flash on his camera to find the exit. But turns out that it wasn't an employee behind the old chap, it was him. Yup, that'll do it. Either I sprint in the dark or I lunge at Goji like a FNAF character in hopes of beating him. His face looks almost exactly like Bloodborne Godzilla, with the exaggerated narrow lower jaw and a dead stare. This was no coincidence, by the way. He was probably the only other American or a person he thought in his eyes were directly working with the Americans on set, which Goji somehow knew. So he went out looking for him, and at the end of the tape the word traitor appears on the screen. In the description it translates, "Traitors, we were supposed to make a film about what happened. What they did to my family, what they did to me, you filthy traitors. I didn't put my soul into this corpse to be played with, and with the people who killed my family, traitors." Alright, so I'm linking this with the first tape that had the word Hiroshima at the top. So in the timeline, 9 years before he first fused with the suit, the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, which took the lives of many innocents. The Americans were the reason for the bombing, and the man in the suit despises Americans. Maybe sometime during the bombing the man in the suit lost his entire family, and since then has despised the land of oil and taxes. Which is somewhat valid because that thing took out a lot of innocents, so he was mad at the fellow Japanese who would film and wear an American monster costume. Hence why he killed the guy in the King Kong suit this time instead of converting him like the previous dude. Or at least I think the guy in the King Kong suit is dead. All it says is that he didn't raise up, and it was just a couple moments after where the cameraman ran for his life. In tape 4 we find out that the guy somehow survived and went to his friend who knows about this stuff somehow to get some sort of answer. It in fact was not a pill but instead radiation.
This is the work of radiation. Holy shit. The man in the suit doesn't fuse with the suit instantly. His body explodes in the suit, then it reshapes itself in the suit.
I honestly would have never guessed that. I was fully locked on to the paranormal side of things. It still is strange though because according to her, the body actually exploded inside of the suit and reshaped itself around it. She compared it to a cream-filled donut, but the difference is that unlike the cream-filled donut, the man actually becomes the suit itself. There is no longer a difference between them. His teeth becomes the suits, his eyes become the suits. Every part of him is now the suits. She also mentions something very interesting. She says that whatever he took will cause him to constantly mutate. So this guy did in fact take something probably very radioactive, that had weird reactions that caused rapid and unusual mutations, and possibly influenced by Goji's story or the story of Godzilla, he decided to take on the role and fuse with the suit, and create some sort of monster army with the other Japanese in the suits to get his revenge on the Americans. Apparently later on he will start to use his teeth like an animal, more effectively, and even learn how to control his tear. Another nightmarish mention is that even though his eyes were first bloodshot, they are now clear and flashed back at the camera, which is something no human eye can do. And finally she says the one thing I've been waiting for the entire time. She tells my boy that he needs to put the man in the suit down, but then my hopes immediately go down when she mentions that it may be too late for mankind, and that there is no final mutation, but instead constant change until it's put down. With the way how this lady is describing this thing, I'm thinking the man in the suit probably has mutating properties like Shin Godzilla, where he could continually mutate to the point where humanity will be in danger. I mean, just before Shin Godzilla was frozen, his 5th stage was a bunch of creatures that directly combated humanity. But I don't think the man in the suit will be able to go that extreme. In the end, she tells him to go to an artist and give them the description his friend said, and let them give some drawings on the final stages of what this thing could look like. The first picture looks like Godzilla if he look maxed. The second sort of looks like Shin Godzilla in the 2nd stage, where he's barely learning how to move on land, but he looks more developed. And the third photo looks like one of the more powerful forms the man in the suit could become. Do you guys remember Jurassic World, the game where the creatures would just look outrageous at level 40 with all the spikes and whatnot? Well, the man in the suit looks like that. There is some audio over the pic, but I'm still recovering from ear infection PTSD, and I refuse to raise the volume to max. This tape's description translates to I am not a monster, I will help all of you. I will kill those who have wronged me, those who murdered my family and those who supported them. You killed my family. Monsters. So this thing is just dead set on getting revenge for his family, wiping out all the Americans or people who side with them. This is some Obito timing right here. In episode 5, the cameraman finds a tape of something that happened during the Anguirus incident. The title itself is called Conformity Test. Alright, so I can't fully understand or read everything on the screen for this little audio log, but in summary, they are trying to do some audio test on the man in the suit. They apparently put him in a cell, but he destroyed the light. But there was a camera with night vision. I don't know what audio test they're trying to find, like isn't the thing incapable of speech at this point? The audio tests themselves are unintelligible, most of the log, but we do see a text of the Oppenheimer quote. Now I have become death, the destroyer of worlds. Still haven't watched that movie, by the way. Now maybe I'm dumb, but I couldn't tell if that was Goji saying the quote or someone else. Because right after that sentence we hear the screams of the damned as the man in the suit screams. And then a very creepy transition of Goji moving closer towards my screen. Eesh. The Japanese part of the description says why should I listen to him, so I'm assuming Goji was hearing some stuff that he didn't like or agree with. And the rest of the description just says we are fully aware of the situation we are in. We will do our best to test what true me to hear so they can train him. We will try to do some audio tests. Let's start with the man in the suit. We have him in a cell. Make sure he is there until you can train him. He destroyed the light and only the darkness, but that's okay. We have the light. So the people in Toho are fully aware of everything that's going on now, but they still want to somehow have the man in the suit in production. So they decide to keep the thing in a cell until he's trained like a circus animal. I don't think they realize that this thing still has a good amount of human intelligence left. He can't talk anymore, but he still has his overall goal in mind, and plans on executing it sooner or later, which is the eradication of Americans and all those who side with them. In episode 6, our cameraman is mailed a tape this time, so perhaps there's someone else who wants to get behind this thing, and decides to share some information. It's basically the man in the suit's thought process on the entire bombing in 1945, saying the nuke took his home, his wife and his kids. At the time he was on a business trip, and when he returned he found out the gruesome truth. So now he's gonna try and take revenge for his family and all the Japanese people who died that day. And at the end of the entire old tape sequence, we see the man in the suit in his normal form, and then this grotesque mutated form. His teeth have now grown like nails sticking out of a 2x4, so he's definitely mutating beyond the suit's capability. The lady was spot on. This guy will continue to grow and mutate until he grows or develops into an entity that will fully be able to carry out his plan. It's also pretty much confirmed at this point that there were no accidents. This guy did in fact take something with unusual radioactive properties that allowed him to mutate with inanimate objects. And he knew the Godzilla suit would be perfect for this, based on what Godzilla represented at the time, an agent of chaos basically, or just a destructive creature. Whatever he took also allows him to transfer those abilities to others through blood. Hence why the Anguirus fellow fused with his suit soon after the man in the suit bit him, and the description is pretty blunt. It says you took everything from me, which the man in the suit vividly expressed throughout all the tapes. Honestly a good part to end on for this video. I'll be covering the remaining 6 tapes in the next video, which will be uploaded this week. Don't forget to follow Unknowingly and show him some support if you haven't already. But that's pretty much it for this one folks. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.